Everyone, welcome back. BetSperts Golf here for the 2024 AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I'm fired up, Andy. We got Pebble Beach in a primetime spot. No football. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, good 2 weeks here with this. Just I don't know. Some people poop on the course. People poop on every course.
People pooping on Pebble? What are we
people.
doing?
No, I mean people poop on the event more than the course. Like, hey, why are we using such a good course for such a shitty event? And we'll get into that. We'll talk about the differences. But yeah, I do love the Cali swing. Obviously, great 2 weeks heading from Pebble into TPC, Scottsdale, into the Waste Management. Even with the Super Bowl that week, like it ends in the afternoon, you hit your winner, you get like a little bit of a respite, and then you go hit the nacho tray and start watching the big game. I don't know if we're allowed to say Super Bowl. I think there's a lot of rules around that, but no, fun one last week. And again, the never-ending streak of long shots win. The leaderboard was very European centric for a while. We talked about this a little off air. Just like everybody I bet outright was kind of there, just couldn't quite get anything done. My one and done was Aubert. Obviously super disappointed in some of the putting. He still managed essentially, I think it was T9. I'm not T9 or T11. Either way, it was good enough to get a bunch of money. The nice thing about the one and dones right now is like no one has picked a winner basically in any of them, unless you're in a huge event, huge contest, and someone has like gotten real squirrely with it. But just getting guys through the cut and getting guys near the top of the leaderboard has been putting you in the money. Any one and done I'm in the money basically just by getting 3 top 20s. So I need to pop one though. You need to pop one to start to solidify yourself. We'll talk more one and done later, but otherwise fun outside of the cheating controversy at the very end. I don't know. Quick thoughts on that before we get into AT&T.
Yeah, I mean, the Aubert thing personally, we were like frustrated because we had Aubert outright. So I think a lot of people missed like short putts too, because like we just didn't see them all, and we had the Aubert stuff like back to back. Are you referring to him like stepping behind his ball to
it's hard to tell.
Pavon,
Pavon.
He stepped behind his ball.
It was a little unnatural looking, but it's hard to tell where exactly the ball was too. But the fact that he was able to get that much spin and have that set down for him kind of indicates like he had either the perfect shot, 1 in 100 shot out of that rough, or he was able to get some of that grass trampled down. So it is what it is. Sports is cheating. That's what people do. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Whatever. Congrats to him. Congrats to France. And yeah, we're on to the AT&T, which, as we said, was kind of looked down on because it was not only a full field event. It was, so you get 156 guys and you don't even get them in the groups of 3. You get them in 2-man groups. Every single one of them had an amateur with him. So every single one of those guys is playing like a 6-hour round on 3 courses for the whole freaking weekend almost. Yeah. And it was kind of a grind to watch because it's like, oh, good. Like a shot of Macklemore. Yay. That's what I want. I kind of want to see the golfers I bet on. There was some angles to be had with guys who don't play well when they're toting an amateur with them. There are some guys that have done well in pro-ams. I don't know. They just get more time to think about their shots, I suppose. Their amateur is hacking out of the rough for 4. I don't know. I'm excited about this. It's down to, I think this said the max. It's like max of 90 in these, although I don't think they'll ever get there considering how they're putting people in. So it's going to be like a field of 80. The amateurs go home after 2 rounds. We're ex-naying Monterey. It's just Spyglass and Pebble for today or Thursday and Friday, and then Pebble Beach for Saturday and Sunday. But still no cut. So you're going to get some 6 out of 6s. Your outrights are going to see the weekend unless they withdraw.
Yeah. So I'm even mad that this says AT&T on the top of our screen because we are disrespecting. This is a crap event historically, but it is an amazing golf course.
It's a really good course.
It's a great golf course. It can bring in any type of golfer. There's some challenging par 5s. The weather is going to be an issue here. Like Spyglass, like I remember playing, Tiger Woods golf, and Spyglass was a fun course to play on. So yeah, you kind of touched on it there. Like the event has been like just crap, especially on Saturday when the majority, like the non-grinders like us, are tuning in. The casuals are tuning in on Saturday, and you can't see the best guys because maybe they're on Monterey. We don't have shot link. We don't have cameras, or maybe they're on high glass, and we have to watch, Larry the Cable Guy and Carlton Banks, and like Bill Murray, and like I just want to watch the best guys, and the best guys aren't even here. We can't even incentivize the best guys to come to one of our country's best golf courses because 6-hour rounds, AMs, all of it. And now it's on Saturday. We're going to get the best on the tour, not the best in the world anymore, because that's a different conversation. That's, we have, 2 tours, but the best on tour at one of the most beautiful golf courses without amateurs. We have just the best and, competing. And I love that. So that actually, I think, creates a very interesting handicap element this week that we have to get into on top of all the other stuff, is that you have like some strong course history. You have some strong, guys that continue to play well here, but like a lot of the best just don't come. So what does that mean? Like, how sticky is that in relation to and there's just some guys that seem like great fits or they're great golfers, but like they haven't done well here. And you look at anything in terms of course history stuff, it is a little stickier. So like that added layer, I think, makes handicapping this event pretty cool and pretty interesting this week too, because it's just a little bit unique.
Yeah, it is our first signature small field no cut event. We'll see how we feel about that. But I mean, you're right. It is disrespect. It kind of feels disrespectful to a course that's had 6 U.S. Opens. Basically, every 10 years we have the U.S. Open here, and then we use it in season for just one of the stupidest of events that we can put together. Obviously, this time of year with the sun going down a little earlier, it makes sense to have the multi-course rotation like we do. So I don't hate that they're still using Spyglass, I guess, but at the same time, if they just went with 80 people, they wouldn't, and no amateurs, they wouldn't have to. They could just use Pebble Beach for 4 rounds. I'm fine. Spyglass is, anyone I've talked to who's ever played Spyglass actually says they kind of like it. Even I think most people even like it better than Pebble as far as going and playing it. Obviously, I've played it on the games too. It is a fun course. 2 great tracks. Like you said, course history does sort of matter, but it's going to get weird because of the fields that we've had in the past. Like, didn't Hoagie win here 2 years ago?
Cashed a Hoagie here 2 years at 60.
Yeah, like Hoagie's not winning against this field.
But even worse, like Vaughn Taylor is one here, and Nick Taylor. Like Nick Taylor's at least won last year, but when you go back into those types of guys have won here, like what was that field? Now, like Spieth has been here every year because he's got his AT&T ties and has to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Hovland was here last year. Like you get just a little sprinkling of the top of the board, but you don't have everyone, and now we do. So that is I think really interesting. So maybe there's an advantage to be had on that with guys that have been here before. But I don't know. We saw that last week too. It's like, hey, you got to go to the Farmers all the time to be able to navigate Torrey, and I'll be hammering Aubert at the Farmers at Torrey every year until that guy hangs it up. He just feels built for that course. So sometimes I'm not going to discredit Rory or Scotty or Morikawa because they've never come here really outside of a handful of U.S. Opens.
I'm going to discredit Morikawa for completely different reasons.
I'm not. I love him.
I know. I do love him outside of one thing, and maybe a good segue into this. And this is the
weather,
disc
right?
course right now. My entire timeline is still talking about the Lions game, but part of them have transitioned over to the Sunday weather. It is a smaller field. They could go in threesomes on Sunday and get some earlier tee times, I suppose. But I mean, the whole day kind of looks dicked. Monday looks bad. You're not going to finish this on Tuesday, most likely.
We had a Monday finish here last year.
Yeah. So the weather looks fine. And granted, we're sitting here on a Tuesday morning playing amateur meteorologist. We got a long time. Sunday could come and go. And honestly, if the rain misses and it's just really windy, they'll still play. I mean, they're going to play, even if it's just drizzly and it's just really, really windy. You're just going to see terrible, terrible carnage because of, the playing into some of these coastal holes with 50-mile-an-hour gusts. It could be very interesting. And that is one of the maybe this is a knock on Morikawa at this point. But yeah, the weather at this current juncture looks horrible for Sunday. And I mean, you always do get some wind here, but now it's looking like wind plus rain. And honestly, it's kind of cold. this is further up the coast than all the other Cali tracks, really. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of going to be a little chilly, especially in the mornings here as well.
Yeah, no, you'll see guys with beanies on, and you'll see some thick layer stuff, and maybe some like snow pants type vibes going on out there, which would be interesting. So it makes sense to me, and I was surprised to read this because you think I've heard some people. Obviously, you're going to have Spyglass is different. Spyglass has fewer holes that are along the coast. You have a little bit more tree line protection there. But some of the stuff that I read in player quotes from previous years have talked about weather specifically, like wanting to be at Pebble instead of Spyglass for some bad weather stuff, which is not necessarily how my brain would think, having just exposure to more stuff. So maybe it's the lay of how the courses are and how like the typical winds come, and maybe they're like cross winds versus downwind or into the wind and stuff like that. So that goes against what I would think. So I would be very careful around like trying to, that's probably more of a DFS discussion, maybe even matchups. They're all going to be in the same course, but like trying to get real cute on thinking I have a better weather advantage with my guys at Spyglass versus what I have at Pebble, because that doesn't seem to be what's matched up. I think it was a Rose quote and a Spieth quote that I saw that were talking about that. And they both caught me off guard because I'm like, that doesn't make sense intuitively based off of the, where they are on the coastline. So yeah, again, 48 hours out, Andy, it's really hard.
And the other thing too is like Spyglass is going to be Thursday or Friday where the weather doesn't look nearly as bad. So, the bad weather, everyone will be on Pebble Beach at that point. Let's talk the courses real quick. Differences between Spyglass and Pebble. One's harder. I mean, and the reason it's harder is because this isn't, like we mentioned, the setup that you get for Pebble when they set it up for, the U.S. Opens. It's a little different than that. It's a little easier. But yeah, Spyglass will play tougher.
Yeah, and weather I think has been is fluctuated maybe what the average score is, but yeah, both really like some commonalities too. Like both really short courses. You're less than 7,000 yards from the tips for Pebble. You just don't have a lot of par 72, 6,900 yard courses on the tour these days. Again, you're going to hear postage stamp greens, really small greens, both places. Pebble's smallest, I think, fifth smallest for Spyglass. So again, like that matters. Ron's talked a little bit on our Monday preview show about the rough being grown out a little bit more this year, which I think is interesting. Maybe that part of it is too. Like they've been reluctant to do that because of the lower level amateurs in the field, and maybe again like you're having some of the top line executives, and like most of the amateurs are like pro athletes in the field. You get the Rogers and Brady and Larry Fitz and stuff like that playing. So maybe we have the rough grown out a little bit. Maybe that gets a little bit more dicey in terms of with the weather too. Maybe you have less rollout here, but again, like you had a lot of short irons into these places. Greens are harder to hit. So you have a little bit of scrambling matter. You're putting on these POA greens we saw last week, putting on California POA, when you look at like lowest percentage of putts made, inside 10 feet, like it wasn't just Oberg, like I was saying last week, or Aubert. A lot of guys were missing short putts. Finau made a mess of the greens. There's a lot of other guys that struggle there too. So you're going to see that too. Some guys missing some short putts here. So that makes it a little bit tougher. Greens will be a little bit slower too because the amateur stuff. But yeah, again, fairways are easy to hit. You see a higher than average fairway hit rate here too. So, mitigates distance too, because you have a lot of less than driver stuff off the tee.
Yeah, there's some, and Palfrey here in the chat's asking, not a bomber track. Spyglass can be, especially when the winds are down. Like you are going to gain an advantage with your distance there. But yeah, both of them being a little short, it is a little more second shot courses. It is a little more just fighting with the elements, and obviously really, really finding these greens. And then, I say finding the greens, and we mentioned how small it is. Like it's an impossible task to hit a really high percentage for greens in regulation here. It is how it is when you play in these conditions with these size greens. So I mean, short game, chipping, wedge play, all that's really going to come into play. And obviously, the POA presents its own challenge for certain people. Where honestly, sometimes it's just like sometimes you see a bad putter it's like, oh, that's not a good line, but just the bumpiness. Sometimes it just takes some putts in. Honestly, I don't know if POA is a skill. I know for sure it is. I shouldn't say that. Like POA putting is for sure a skill, but man, sometimes it just seems to like invite variance with like, hey, just this isn't something where you're very much finding the perfect line, trying to find that outside lip of the hole and watching this fall. It's almost like some guys are just looking for a range and just saying the bumpiness is going to be what it is, and I'm gonna find my way near the hole and hope this falls. Especially like last week, how many short ones we saw, over the course of all these. Basically anything that isn't just pure bent. There's the graininess, there's the bumpiness, and it's tough because it's very, very hard to predict.
Outside of the places on tour that have that whatever the wasteland area where it's essentially bunkering, but they don't call it bunkers, so you can ground your club without a penalty stroke. Outside of those, most bunkers on tour are here at Pebble. A lot of fairway bunkers too, so that's another thing that kind of adds to the clubbing down. Driving accuracy about 72% the last couple of years, is one of the higher rates on tour. Now again, greens and reg, one of the lowest on tour at 63%. So again, even though because they're smaller greens, so no matter where you land off the tee, even into the fairways or into the rough, it's just been hard to hold the greens here. So Ron has in his preview here over 46% of the approach shots here are under 150 yards, which is again not usual on tour either, and a lot like from 100 to 125, even 50 to 75, depending on where you're at. I'm interested to see how the weather impacts that in terms of like rollout when you hit the fairway. But again, like with the Spieth quote was dart throwing contest. Let's see who can make the most putts. So we haven't had like a runaway scores. They've been in terms of your average score, you've been in the mid to high teens here, which isn't crazy, pretty average on tour. So even though we've had sometimes we've seen like we had the Amex, when you have the AM element, you get those slower greens, softer, nicer pin placements. That hasn't always been the case here. And again, the weather could complicate things. So yeah, that's again, I love that we're going to get beautiful golf on TV and the best in the world. And I don't mind a putting contest. It's a good thing. That doesn't matter necessarily to me. So POA experience is a thing.
And the thing is about this being a putting contest, it's not going to be a putting contest in the way that like Detroit or Minneapolis.
AMX went up to almost 30.
Where it would be like, oh, these guys are just really hitting it pure on the greens and they're making a bunch of 20-footers and it's some rando. Like you're not invited to this putting contest unless you're hitting a bunch of greens. Like you still have to be of a certain level off the tee and of a certain level with your second shot to be even invited to this putting contest that probably will occur. So it is harder, I suppose, with this field right now being such a top-notch field to get into that part. So quick before we get into, we'll start talking some stats that matter and start building our model. I do have to thank our sponsors, Pool Genius. Maybe if you read the newsletter, you've seen some of the stuff they're contributing, but team rankings, Pool Genius, they've been having products for NFL Survivor and the March Madness bracket stuff for a while. So it's a nice way to add a little science and data to your one and done process this year. They have one and done picks product right now. It's free. It's free until February 11th. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes. You can try their product. It'll give you customized pick advice based on the size of your pool, which tournament and which past picks you've used. So it's not just here's some advice. It is custom advice for you. The finished product will let you have multiple one and done entries in there, so it can give you customized advice, whether in multiple pools for you. So it's going to give you data-driven pick grades, highlighting your best strategic options. And again, limited time free trial until February 11th. So a couple weeks from now, sign up now, check it out, visit poolgenius.com. And like I said, there will be links in the show notes and YouTube description. And we're on to some stats that matter for this one.
Yeah, sharing it on screen. Again, the tool is really cool. So yeah, definitely check that out. Go in the show notes and dig in there. Also want to tell folks too, if you have seen on Twitter from our house account or from Ron at PGA Splits 101, we have a really cool way for you to get access to all that we're doing over at BetSports Golf through our friends over at Vivid Picks. If you are not familiar, Vivid Picks is a DFS site out there, like some of the other ones you're probably familiar with, where there are lots of different games. I believe there's going to be Vivid picks plays for PGA this week. We've been waiting for those. We should have an article on the site for that as well. But again, you can go to this. This is a free article on the site, or you can go into your app store, download Vivid Picks, use promo code BetSpertsGolf for a $5 deposit and play. Simply deposit $5. You can do Super Bowl props. You can do golf stuff, whatever. And that's going to give you access to all that we're doing over at BetSperts Golf for the entire season for free. They will match your first deposit up to $250. So if these are games you like to play on, Underdog, you like to play on Prize Picks, some of the other ones that are in the space. This is a thing for you. Take that first deposit match up to $250. That's better than anyone else is doing out there in the market as well. And I would tell you, Vivid's got a cool social element. Like if you can, like you follow me on there too, we get an odds boost bump on the plays that we tail each other with. We're going to have BetSperts Golf specific odds boost plays. So there's going to be some cool features to take advantage there as well. If you just want to take advantage of the loophole to get access to what we're doing for an annual sub for $5, do that too. You get more information here in the show notes. And again, this is a free article there on the site if you're watching on YouTube. Again, download Vivid Picks, use promo code BetSpertsGolf, and for $5, you got to play $5 too. And as soon as you play $5, within about 24, 48 hours, you get an email to access your BetSperts Golf subscription. So it's only available in about 28 states. They're listed here on this article as well. If you are not in one of those states, simply DM us on Twitter at BetSperts Golf, Andy, myself, Ron at PGA Splits 101, and we'll hit you with a promo code to take advantage of discounted month for 50% off, or a nice discount on the year as well to get access. This is an affiliate deal. I can't get you a $5 subscription for just for DMing us, but we'll get aggressive and make sure you can get access to the rabbit hole, which we're going to use now to build our model, which I'm really, really excited about here.
Yeah, let's fire into some stats that matter. And I guess, where do you want to start? Because like you said, we're dealing with the same kind of bullshit we had to deal with the last couple of weeks. You got multiple tracks, multiple courses. So it's going to be a little tricky. I don't know what you want to anchor with. Maybe some ball striking, maybe some tee to green. I think tee to green might be your anchor point for the week as far as setting a baseline, because that's going to be so important for, again, keeping yourself above water, keeping yourself in contention for something here.
This is always a fun conversation. I like this first conversation because I like the anchor piece where we are making sure that we capture a high level strokes gains number to kind of like anchor our fields. But I love this dialogue. So I don't think it's strokes gain total, because I think we want to capture POA specifically, right? Now we can either do tee to green, because I think tee to green is relevant because around the green matters, I think in a big way this week, because that's kind
of why I leaned that way.
Or do we want to do some sort of, you could do ball striking, which are just capturing approaching off the tee, and then capture short game, strokes gain short game, or putting specific. Like I think there are numerous ways to go about it this week that I think are all viable. I would love to get, do you ever think that way in terms of like, because I think I want to give a little bit more weight than normal to around the green. So if I don't want to get in the spot.
I'm full agreement. That's why I said tee to green rather than just using total. I think just because it's going to be like the journey there is the most important part.
Right.
The putting's high variance, but like if you're not ranking high in tee to green, finding your way to these greens in regulation, finding nice, it doesn't have to be all fairway finders, but at least good enough shots where your second shots are giving you a chance. Obviously with the par fives, putting yourself in a position to score on the par fives because you have to. Like that's gonna be big. So I like tee to green here.
Okay. So tee to green. I'm right now on 12 months, last 50 rounds. You can see if you can do lots of different drop downs here in the view menu. We have a million conditions to filter in, which we'll get into as well, just to give people an overview. We're defaulted to rank here to show where people rank in these key stats. But you can look at their average, their total strokes gains. I love percent of rounds gained to give you an understanding of how consistent someone is in a certain metric as well. You have the ability here to download all this data into a CSV, create a bunch of models, cut it up however you like. You want to see our models for the week, you can go into this tab and do that as well. Lots of different ways. If you want just course history, you can go into this course tab and just pull up. I wouldn't recommend that for this, but people love course history, and you can do that here as well. So we will anchor with T to green. I'm going to add this to my column. You can make a note here if you'd like. I'm going to skip that, but I'm looking at the last 50 rounds in this. Everyone in this field, T to green is our anchor. All right.
I'm making it full screen. I'm going full screen.
There you
making
go.
it
Okay.
bigger.
Yeah, no, I like it.
So I can pick my nose off camera and
I can share more. All right, perfect. All right. Now, what else do we want to do? Any of the strokes gains metrics? Or do you want to get into some of the more granular views? And like, what do we want to do off the tee? Ron is adamant that off the tee this is a week for good drive percentage. That makes sense to me. Good drive percentage is on 4s and 5s, the number of fairways hit, plus the number of greens and reg when the drive was not in the fairway off the tee, divided by the number of 4s and 5s. So again, like it captures, even if you're a little wayward off the tee, is your drive still, your approach shot still a green and reg?
Yeah, I was going to say we need to make two choices here, because you don't want to put too much into one of these models. You don't want to start double counting everything. So we do need to see, like, I think maybe, and there's a million ways to skin a cat, obviously, but the way I like to do it is keep it tight, not more than 5, 6, things in one of these, unless you really want to get something crazy granular, and those are fun too. But I like where we're at. I like, it's been a few, 4 shows that we've been doing this now, building these together. You pick something off the tee. There's a million ways to look at approach. You pick something there, and then you pick a few more granular things that need to be added to go with the anchor. Like, obviously, 1 off the tee, 1 from approach, and 3 more things with our anchor point gets you to 6. I think that's probably a good spot to be. So I'm with you. Good drive gain percentage. It's a way to measure kind of accuracy plus just, strokes gained off the tee, essentially, in a roundabout way. So I think that's a good one to use here. My mind is already moved forward to like all the different ways to look at approach here.
All right. I like it. I want to circle back to that real quick, because I think once we get in season, because I agree with you, I think less is more in terms of doing this, because you can start to really double count, and you're almost like, you can, especially with like the conditions. I mean, look at, if you're watching for the first time, like a number of conditions you can filter by here is pretty wild. When you start to overfit, it's like, all right, these are short, very short courses. We have a strong field. We got a no cut event on POA. Like, all of a sudden your data set is so small.
Yeah, it's like here's 4 rounds that this guy played in the last 5 years. You
got to back out 5 years, and you're still getting small sample. Like, oh, and this is, here's the penalty for missed fairway. Like, you could be looking at these things from an individual standpoint. I think is great. You can just look at it too. You don't have to necessarily add it to the model. As I scan down and look at all the different ways that you can do this, some things that you obviously can't do anywhere else. Like, there's a ton of bunkers here. We're not adding sand saves to the model. Like, it's not how you should be building these things. Once we get into the season, and maybe we'll have these conversations once we get a little bit more data and these guys are playing every week. In terms of adding more legs, like you're talking about, hey, having 5 things, the only thing that I would start to add is I would mess around with sample size of the anchor. So like we talked about T to green being the anchor. We did 50 rounds here. I would start to play around with, okay, what does 24 rounds look like? What does 16 rounds look like? And I would add those to the model and mess around with the weight size to get a sample of, okay, he's playing really good in the recent form. I still want to have long-term form captured, but I want to play around with like smaller sample form stuff versus adding more granular stuff. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I'm with you, and that's something I do, because it start looking at like, all right, let's say we're at the Sony, the Century. They have one of the early ones. It's like, all right, I want to see their last 6 months of golf. And you realize like some of these top golfers played like 1 swing event.
Yeah.
Some of these top golfers, so you're catching like the BMW and 1 event in the fall when you're looking at that. So you do need to look at a bigger sample size. But I do like a more recent form. It's just not something that's available to you when guys haven't played recently. No, I'm 100% with you. Once we get into, the Florida swing, once we get into the middle part of the season, I do want to start looking at like, how has this guy played January, February? And obviously, as that goes, I keep that rolling, where I look at how is this guy playing over the last year, but how is he playing so far this season? How's he been playing over the last month or so? I do have like a rolling form model I start to roll out once we get a little further into the season. So I'm with you there, but obviously for now, I got to look at a pretty big sample to try to anchor a guy.
1,000%. And folks, you can do this too. If you want to go into the seasons up here, you can literally just click 2024. Again, like to Andy's point, I wouldn't recommend that now. You're getting a really small sample. And you have the ability here, and you can go into your saved rankings, and you'll see here stuff that I have. You can pull stuff from, I can pull into this report and bore you, but you can save a ton. You're not limited on the number of things that you can save in here. I have a rolling off the tee, rolling approach, rolling form, lots of stuff. Dozens and dozens saved. You're not limited on the number of reports that you can save and just run weekly. So, all right, we got off the tee and we have our anchor captured. There are a million ways to capture approach. Again, we are capturing approach in terms of tee to green. But we can get into some of this stuff in terms of proximity, or we have the specific fairway or rough proximity ranges that we can do as well. What are your thoughts?
Kind of just feel, if you want to go real simple on it, something I put in my model, so I kind of want to go different on this. I went small greens past 18 months, small greens in regulation. Like there's more than one course that has small greens, but I had to go a little further back. It's like, how are guys play? It's tricky because all the different courses that are classified as small greens don't have the same conditions getting to that second shot. So a little noisy there, but like how have guys been at finding smaller greens? How are guys with their irons, their mid-range irons, their wedge shots? Like I think it encompasses a lot of different approach shots. So I did go greens in regulation percentage, and I filtered it by small greens. But I mean, you could go a proximity number, you could go West Coast proximity, you go West Coast approach. Like I don't know. Like I'll kind of let you run with that because I already went a little granular in my personal model for the week.
I did the same. The West Coast stuff, now you can do it, which is again, you can literally right here in the event season, you can go ahead and click West Coast. The only problem with that is courses are so different.
I know it.
That's the challenge. Like, right, Riv is different than PGA West, is definitely different than what we have here in Torrey. Like there's not a lot of, you have POA, but we can capture POA in a different way. So again, you have the ability to do that. I think that's could be more of like, to me, more of like a form thing, or who historically plays well in Hawaii type of stuff that you have the ability to look at and chop up. But yeah, I did the same thing that you did. I don't mind doing that, and let's find a different stat maybe to capture versus greens and reg, because I did the same thing. I looked at greens and reg on the small green. So let's look at green size small, and what do we get here? Last 50. This recaptures that. And you can tell, oh, I didn't pick it. I didn't apply. Once you hit apply here, this will update all the data. You'll see you get this little red dot here that tells you have a condition, and it's listed here as well. So that make sure you turn it off when you start to look at the rest of your stats here.
You can actually exit out right there when you want to get rid of it instead of having to go back in the filter.
Just for the sake of looking at it, what Andy did, this is what your top of the board looks like in this metric. Greens and reg, last 50 rounds played. We're not getting 50. I have a 16 round minimum, but if you kick this out to say 18 months, like Andy did, you're going to get a little bit larger. Yeah, you're going to get probably 50 rounds from most guys. Pretty close. Aubert, Scotty, Finau, Morikawa, Kevin Yu keeps showing up.
Kevin Hughes, stay hot, buddy.
Yeah, look at some of this too. Like Kevin Yu going for the green hit rate here, top proximity too. Like Kevin Yu is maybe down the board finishing position bet in terms of what we have popping here. So again, that shows you who's there. Smalley, Vic, Glover, Denny, some guys that play here and play here often and perform well. So that makes some success, or makes some sense to me. How about we go with let's see if we have anything into the fairway, because again we have a higher than normal fairway hit rate. So let's go proximity off the fairway just to mix it up for you and see what happens here. Cam Young at the top of the board. Interesting. So let's do this. Let's just see. Hey, Hoagie, we got a win here in the past for Hoagie. Kurt Kitayama was in the mix here last year until he flopped in round 4. Straka makes some sense to me here. So let's add that in. I want to see too, just to show folks this fairway buckets. This is where you get this too. This is going to matter a lot this week in terms of where guys go. This is overfitting a little bit to me because we're not getting a massive sample on some guys. So I'd probably take off the small greens and stuff there. But yeah, that's an important bucket. So we're gonna have fairway proximity to our model. All right. I don't love that, but again, just to look different and show people the things that they can do and see. What else do we want to do? We want to do anything with around the green? We want to do some POA putting stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you either get granular on the putting or just look at short game. Again, in my model, I went just short game because there is going to be quite a bit of, it's not difficult. Like if you do end up around the green and you need to chip, it hasn't been overly difficult. We'll see what the rough looks like. We'll see what the conditions look like. We'll see how wet it is. But I included short game over a decent size just to kind of encompass like who has a good baseline for chipping and getting up and down, honestly. So I put that in. We could look at POA putting. We could look at West Coast putting. We could look at around the green, honestly, if you want to just go that direction and say putting is super hard to predict. So I'll leave that one up to you as well.
Kevin Yu, this is where Kevin Yu goes to die. Strokes gained, short game, last 50 rounds, dead last in the field. So this is a Kevin Yu story. He's got to throw darts. He's got to be hitting these greens. Which again, that it does kind of make sense, right? We liked Kevin Yu as we just referenced because he showed up in the greens and reg in proximity. So theoretically, like if he's in and dialed in and doing what we would expect him to do based off of that other metric, he would be missing fewer greens as well. Now, this is also capturing putting as well, which is also not going well for Kevin Yu or Tony Finau, which is definitely what we saw last week too. So baseline short game, last 50 rounds, again, short game capturing around the green and putting. JT Poston, Brian Harmon, Denny McCarthy, Mad McNeely. Again, you drink every time you hear that Mad McNeely was raised on this course. His dad has I Google Mad McNeely's home on Pebble Beach. It's in the state. It's nice. Sahith, Adam Scott, Victor Hovland, which is interesting. Vic, this is the undoing of Vic for years, and here we are over a 50-round sample of Vic popping big time on short game. Again, driven by his elite putting, but he's still top 22 here in the field in around the green over the last 50 rounds, which is pretty cool to see for Hovland. We're gonna get Hatton out of here. He is no longer with us.
I know. I mentioned that to Ron. I'm like, God, should we pull Hatton? But technically, he is not withdrawn from the tournament,
no.
Even though he is. Every sportsbook has him listed as like the 5th favorite in Mayakoba on the Live Tour. So Hatton will remain, I guess, until we actually hear him say I'm withdrawing. But I mean, it's near certainty. So
yeah,
he would have been fine here. Vic. There were some Vic rumors too. We'll see where those lead. I mean, we've had rumors. We've had rumors for everyone. Like honestly, it's only going to take one or two more guys to really put this deal finally to bed. Like that. Eventually, we're just gonna have to make the deal there, Jay. Yeah. What did we decide on for approach then?
I don't know. I mean, approach we did, but putting around the green. Like, I don't know, the putting splits with POA, I do think it matters, but
it could be a scoring. I mean, it could be opportunities gained.
I mean, you got to score on par fours here.
Yeah.
Because again, like it's you have so many of them that matters a lot. Here's your par four. We have some more par four stats coming very, very soon. Right now, you have birdie or better in par four scoring average. I don't know what kind of sample. I just want to see what kind of sample we get if we're looking at POA birdie or better on par fours. What kind of data do I need to get? Okay, so if I go last 18 months, 16 rounds, I'm getting 3 guys. That's not getting it done for me. I don't like going back too far. I'm not getting more than 40 guys, 50 guys. All right, 50 guys. But again, going back 3 years, that's a little bit noisy. Now, again, this checks out. Jason Day loves this place. It's played very well. Homa Rose won here last year. Xander's a California kid. Malnati can putt his face off. That's what he does well. So that's a little bit of a noisy data set to me. Not something that I would want to mess around with. So let's just go par 4 scoring. par 4, birdie or better. I don't even want to mess around with POA. Again, you can do whatever you want. I think looking at multiple things is useful. But yeah, I don't like to overfit stuff. I think we want to keep it simple. So right now, I think we only have those 4 metric. Anything else that you want to capture here in terms of Pebble Beach?
I mean, people have pointed to bogey avoidance being important. Getting up and down when you do have a problematic hole, because you're going to have some problematic holes where not everything goes right. They're both, even though Pebble's still tough. It still can be very tough.
Yeah.
People pointed obviously at POA putting, if you want to get granular on that. The scrambling around the green stuff, we're kind of on that. Other than that, I think I'm kind of happy with this one at this point.
Okay, we'll add bogey avoidance. We're not going to give it a lot of weight, but we're going to add it. And I think because it does, I think, work well with the birdie rate. I think you kind of capture both sides of that. So, all right, we added all those. Like you said, you can add notes. You simply hit this creates mixed condition, takes you to a new page where you can weigh these things out. Look how fast that is. We're streaming. We're still kicking butt. So we're going to do Pebble betting show. What do we want to do our anchor? 30, 40%?
Yeah, 30. I mean, we only have a few other things. I'd usually say 25, but there's not that many other things. And then you kind of decide how you want to weigh the rest of these. And the first 2 are going to be heavier. Probably 25, 25.
I'm going to bump that up. Yeah. All right, so we're 60. Got a little bit to spend down here. We'll do 20 there, and then I'll give this 10.
Okay. I don't hate it.
Perfect. All right, here you can see here too. I was saying, look at all these. When we were rolling this out last year and messing around with some stuff, there are, I have things for these are just some off the tee models that I have. We have stuff from, last year, Mexico, the Masters, Harbor Town. You can go back and see, we're not limited on the ones that we, have shared for you guys, and you don't have to kick them out. Just, here's driving accuracy. Here's a driving overall. You can keep as many as you'd like here. So I'm going to save this so you folks can view it as well. If you want to just see what we did, we'll generate this model. Let's see what it spits out. Oh, what did we miss? 60. Oh, no, I went way off here.
You're at 110%.
Yeah.
Go 15-15. There you go.
There we go.
That's 105%.
Hey.
It's from Willy Wonka.
Oh,
Lucas Glover.
Now again, we're grabbing. This is to the point that we're making, right? We're getting Glover's absolute heater in this because we're pulling the last 50 rounds. But again, I think the heater was nice. So look, hey, $6,500 Lucas Glover. It hasn't been great since, but again, that will filter itself out. Now, Scotty number 2, Russell Henley 3rd, Victor Hovland 4th, Svensson.
I don't think you can realistically make a model using any of the top 15, any combination of the top 15 things that matter here, and not have Russell Henley pop up. Everybody's gonna have Russell. I'm probably gonna bet Russell Henley. It's a big number because it's a good field. He's gonna pop up. He is in my model as well, in the top 5, I think.
Yeah, Svensson here. Aubert, we're not getting the fairway proximity over 50 rounds for him. Otherwise, it looks like he probably populated even a little bit higher here, which is interesting. Morikawa again, Cantley, Luke List, and Andy's boy, Steven Yeager, who we didn't talk about. Did you bet Yeager last week? I don't think you did you?
No, I talked.
You had to be so happy that he failed.
I mean, Cal had a ticket on it, so I was like,
okay.
I was a little bit, conflicted. I didn't want to cheer against Cal, but at the same time, I talked about Yeager and did not add him to the card, so that would have stung. That was obviously an odd finish. Rory a little lower based on his good drive percentage. I don't know how far back this 50-round sample is going to go for him on the PGA Tour. Probably, he didn't play in the fall. Probably looking into last spring.
Yeah.
He still, at that point, he still had a little bit of that weird double miss. He'd get double crossed sometimes. So he was still kind of dialing it in from when he added that distance. I'm trying to think back how far I was looking at him as far as a fade because of that at some spots. He's obviously a lot better right now. His drive has kind of come back.
Yeah, and there were times over the last couple of years where like the short wedges on approach were a problem for him. He's really dialed in there as of late. Like elite stuff from like 125 in, 150 in has been really, really good. Always interesting to me to flip the rank upside down and just see who is not doing well. Hey, Matthew, well, like we don't have again, we're not getting a massive sample here, which is part of the problem. Matt McNeely, going to be popular this week. He's growing up here. A lot of the statistical stuff, if you're not actually capturing course history here, is not profiling very well. Taylor Montgomery and Seamus Power being low are ever interesting to me. Montgomery is interesting. Again, really good at some of that like short wedge stuff, can put his face off. Seamus has played really well here historically too.
Former Barbasol champion Seamus Power.
Yeah. Kitayama, who, like I said earlier, played well here. Sahith, who can scramble for sure. So those are some interesting stuff. Jason Day just hasn't been playing really well.
I think Højgaard is probably just a sample thing too. Obviously, he's playing 100%. Very well. Yep. Jason Day rightfully down there. One of the more popular one and done picks last week. And I couldn't have been happier to see him at the top of the list for a few places, because I'm like, man, I'm like 60-40. He missed his cut this week, and obviously he did. It was great.
When we shift to the betting board, if we look at Chris as a baseline, it is Rory and Scotty around 8, let's call it. There are shorter and longer numbers on each. Xander next, basically 12. There's some there's shorter numbers out there as well. Vic around 12. Then you get into Spieth, Homa, Cantley, Morikawa. Those guys are all basically 20, around 20 or shorter for the most part. I would call that the top of the board because a little bit of a teardrop. JT down there next. Then you get into some of the 30s or so on some of these other guys. Any thoughts that you have in terms of top of the board or anyone in consideration for you here?
Yeah, JT is a guy I kind of looked at. I mean, you don't just suddenly lose. Like it was a tough 2023, but I've seen glimpses. There's been glimpses now. At a fair number like that, at over 30-1. I'm kind of looking his way. Obviously, Scheffler and Rory leading the field. It feels like Victor should be closer to their number rather than Xander.
I agree.
The way we saw him at big time events. Like if I'm betting somebody in the top 5, Scotty, Rory, Victor, Xander, Jordan, it is probably Victor and Jordan.
Now, that's interesting. Those are the two guys that have come here the most too. Is that part of it at all for you? Okay.
It is for Jordan. Like Victor is more just long-term ascent and where he's at right now. And obviously price compared to betting Rory or Scotty down at 8 or 9-1 or Xander at 12. So getting both those guys at 16-18 feels a lot better than betting either the big favorites at kind of half that price. So if I'm putting my card together and I'm going to be using some guys near the top. I do think right now, as how I looked at it this morning, it's probably going to be Victor and Jordan, and then probably 2 guys in the middle of the pack. I'm going to have to separate, and then obviously there's no chance I'm not betting Henley. Might be just Henley. It might be one guy in the middle of the pack, and then Henley Jaeger.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I bet Henley. I fired on Henley. Where are we at now? There's still very bettable numbers out here on Russell Henley, which is a mistake. Chris has the best in the market, actually. Domestics 55s are the best. FanDuel and PointsBet, it looks like. Fanatics 62 and change on Chris. And I took a 60 early on Monday on Henley. And yeah, like you said, you can't run anything here to not have Henley. And this is the guy it feels like he should be coming here annually. I don't think he loves, maybe he doesn't like the 3-course rotation, or maybe doesn't like the Pro-Am elements, but I had come here before in previous years, T15 and 2018. Hasn't been here since the 19 US Open. But again, he's playing really good. Last year was awesome. He had 14 of his 25 starts inside the top 20. He is 6 of the past 7 inside the top 14. Last time we saw him, T4 at Sony, another short positional course. He's going to put himself in position off the tee. he's awesome with his wedge and around the green game, and even some of the POA stuff that we didn't put in the model. He showed up well too, just taking a look at it. So yeah, Henley around 60, 55s that are out there on FanDuel, I think still very, very bettable. And in terms of like middle tier guys, absolutely love it.
Yeah. And then honestly, it might be Lucas Glover in the bombs range. If two or three kind of bombs I'm looking at, because it's going to be what I've said. It's going to be Henley. It's going to be Vic. It's going to be Jordy at this current juncture, at these current prices. Jaeger, very much in discussion. Henley's making it. But the bombs I'd be looking at outside of Glover, somebody who popped up on the model we made, Svensson. Just more of a form and fit. Putnam, probably more fit than form, but he looked good in some of the stuff I put together as well. And then maybe another guy I go to, and this is going to have to start being like a top 20 bet, because I don't see Mark Hubbard winning this event.
I like Hubbard too. Yeah.
But Hubbard is on my bombs list for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. You know, we're not going to get a way down the board market this week. Although DraftKings does have a T40 market out there. Interested to see if anyone else jumps into T40
I wouldn't want to put numbers up for that if I'm a book. Yeah.
78-man field or whatever. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I want to circle back. I was talking to Feinberg last night, and I'm going to have massive, especially if you're on it too. Like I don't know what to do with this. I'm going to have massive, like Aaron Wise, except Hovland wins. Like I can't not have Hovland tickets if like my friends are going to have Hovland tickets and he's going to like be competitive. So I didn't, and I really don't have room for it. I have to be kind of outstretching my allocation of funds, because I went Morikawa. Morikawa should be coming to this event every year. I think your weather point is valid, but like the dude is nails inside like those approach ranges. He's good on POA. He's going to put himself in position off the tee. Like he got off to a really good start. It was one bad round. He's been playing really good golf. Like I waited. There were 22s at open. I'm like, no one's betting it. I thought it was going to go up, and it went up. 25s popped, and all of a sudden it crashed down to 16s in some spots. What's the best Morikawa number out there now? 21 on Chris. 20 is the best domestic number. So, I mean, it sat there for hours at 22, and then all of a sudden we saw Caesars get out to 25, FanDuel out to 25, and then those collapsed. So, yeah, Morikawa was my top of the board ad. I feel like this is just, ball striking, wedge play, short game's been really good. California POA just feels like a guy that should be competing on Pebble Beach every year. So I feel good at 25, and I think we're getting a discount because he, missed the cut, kind of collapsing there on Friday or Thursday, I guess that was. So yeah, the weather stuff makes me a little nervous, but then I jumped down. Henley at 60 is my next shortest on the board, because I did take some bombs in terms of the odds board, but guys that I still think are awesome golfers. So next for me is Adam Scott. Like Scott's been playing really good. And he tells us that only a few handful of tournaments matter. I would think this would be one of them, but like he's got inside the top 7 each of his past 4 starts. T7 last time he played at Pebble, which is the U.S. Open. Nice success historically in California. Like if you want to look at the West Coast stuff, like he's won at Riv. That was his last win on tour. He's played really well historically at Torrey, which is really good. The around the green stuff, short game. If you look at like percent of rounds gained, 75% of his past 50 rounds, which ties for the second best mark in the field. He has gained strokes in short game. So even when he's not dialed in, he can kind of figure it out and scramble a little bit. But in terms of like short wedge stuff, that's when he really is really good too. So Adam Scott at 80, I thought was just too long. Let me see where that is now. Let's see if there's any Scott stuff. 88 on Chris. A lot of domestics are, collapsed to 55, 60. So, yeah. So where did Scott come out for you?
Looking for Mr. Scott. TT. Number 1, Scotty Scheffler. Middle of the pack. He was kind of down on some of the granular stuff I used. I'm gonna have to look at my overall ratings for him, but the driving accuracy didn't seem to be too great. Couple other things that drug him down. And to your point, to Morikawa too, I don't think it was super windy, but it was kind of cold and shitty at Harding Park, right?
It was.
It was like 4 years ago. I'm trying to remember it. Like, what was the weather like at the 2020 PGA? And like, fuck, I don't remember. I do picture guys like wearing beanies and then being kind of gross because even though it's later in the year, it's further up north. It's like the Mark Twain saying. Like, sometimes I've been to San Francisco in the summer, dude. It sucked one day. Like, it was like, shit, it is cold. How are we going to a baseball game today? This is awful.
Yeah. I used to have to go for work all the time. And it was like, oh, you're going to California? It must be nice. And it's like, well, it's Northern California. It is sometimes really crappy up there. And it's gorgeous when it's nice. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Morikawa stuff with the weather is fair, but we'll see. I mean, the rest of
it's fair, but it might only be one round, and you can make up for a lot with the irons play over the other three. So I hate it. I don't hate it. That's pretty much all I have for. I don't know, outrights I'm looking at right now. Obviously, I'll have the newsletter out tomorrow. I'll have some matchup stuff in that. We'll have some DFS talk. We'll have some one and done talk. I'll leave that in the show notes too if you're not subscribed to the newsletter. Otherwise, it's right in the homepage on BetSports Golf. If you want to go find that.
I got two more bombs for you that I want to get.
Yeah, closing thoughts, last bombs. What do you got?
Sepp, 110 on Straka. It's been playing really good golf. He again missed the cut at the Farmers, but before that, past 6 starts, all T22. Other 5 were like top 14. There was a solo second of the Hero. Again, like the approach proximity ranges that I think matter. Small green stuff. He populated really well for me. He play really well around the greens too. So it was the first time last week in one round capture and strokes game that he lost more than 0.05 on approach since July's Rocket Mortgage. Next week he went out and won at John Deere. So he just is a guy I think is just better than maybe our longer baseline stuff is looking at. And then Brandon Todd. I like Todd here. He gave me a good spot last year in triple digits. T2.
Of course you do.
I like Todd. Yeah, I bet Todd often, to be honest. And probably like you said, probably a better finishing position bet than actual win here. But again, like 110 on Todd. Gonna put himself in the fairway. Awesome around the green. Really good on the short proximity stuff. Again, competed in that field. He was T2 heading into the weekend at the Century against this loaded field as well. We talked about it like he had like a temper tantrum and smashed his driver and busted it, and that ruined his weekend. And he fell down the leaderboard. But the rest of the stuff was pretty good. Now I'm not making those big old greens at the Century or not comparison to what we have here at the at Pebble. But again, played really well here last year. Has played well here historically, and I think he's just a better golfer than he used to be. So some of the other stuff too with his form and fit here, I think is better than maybe past results. So Todd probably finishing position bet, and if people aren't wanting to sprinkle down the board at triple digit guys, but that's all who's winning. So I wanted to have a couple, and Sepp and Todd are my guys.
That'll be my proclaim. I almost said a word that wasn't even a word. Proclamation for the week. Somebody who's winning this like 40 to 1 or under. Like we're getting it. It might not be a favorite. It might not be Rory. It might not be Scotty, but it is going to be a shorter. We're not having a 100 to 1 or win. I'm sorry about your bets you just made, and I'm just proclaiming them dead losers. But we're going to get it. We're finally going to get it. It's not. It's
outright betting. They're almost always guaranteed to be like stone cold losers. It's what It's what happens. That's okay.
That's the thing. When you're betting someone at 100 to 1, you're expecting it to lose. So
1,000%.
Such is life. And let's hope it's Vic. You're gonna have to bet him. You're gonna have to bet him just to join. It's got to be a group play. So,
all right. I probably just won't do a full unit sizing on that. I might just so I have a ticket. Yeah,
small bet on Vic. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, like Noonan said, in the show notes, in the YouTube description, there's a link to how to get everything BetSports Golf Premium for $5 a month from Vivid. There is the link to the free trial from our partners at Pool Genius to check out their one and done tool. There's a link to Ron's preview for the week. There's links to find all of us on Twitter. And obviously, check out betsportsgolf.com for everything else. And we'll see you next week for the Wampo.
Boots on the ground for Andy.
Hopefully. I still haven't got tickets, or I haven't got plane tickets. I'm a last minute kind of guy. I'm trying to get down there though. So see you guys.